Can you hear me? Yeah, there we go. So the best thing about being third, that means Chris already gave you the fundamentals of UX design. We just heard Hector speak about research. So now it's my time to come in and talk about like the long lost cousin of UX, which is content design. But before we start, I need to try something. Let me see if it's me or the clicker. Can you give it?
Which one?
I don't know. Let's figure it out.
Okay.
Next. No. So it is a clicker. There we go. Thank you very much. So, hi. My name is Mario. I've been working as a content designer for over 10 years now. When I realized that this morning, I was like, okay, so it's been a long time. I started out actually working for Chris. He was the one that gave me the first chance to actually transition from, I used to be a copywriter, to a UX designer. So let's get cracking. It's not working. There we go. It is with love. It's either that or maybe it thinks it's like a Harry Potter one, so we need to figure out some spells. Okay, so what the hell is content design? Alhomora. Wingardium Leviosa. I'm out of spells, people. Is it the backhand? There we go. Okay, so first question is, can anybody tell me what this website does? What's it for? Shout it out. Come again? Automation marketing. What else? Anybody over there in the back? Whatever it is. There's no wrong answers. Come on. What does that look like? Graphic something? One more? Any guesses? Miro? Yeah. Why can't you tell me what the hell this is? What's it missing? There we go. It's missing the words. Because I just made you realize that every single thing that you interact with on every single day depends on two things. The visual side, but also the content. And what happens is brands or products think that people want to live the full-on experience, right? You have your amazing, huge loft house with like, look at that lighting. I wish I had that at my house. You have your, obviously you wouldn't stand there with your pristine iPad and you're cooking, right? And the truth of the matter is, this is what life actually is. Why? Because nobody has time to dedicate 100% of their energy, their attention, and even their time to your product or your service. Because we're all doing something else at the same time. We're trying to catch a bus. We're trying to run to get somewhere. We're trying to get directions. Sometimes we just get back home, put on whatever we want to watch on TV, and you're actually like flipping through something else. So nobody ever is going to give you 100% of their attention and their energy to whatever it is that you're doing. And what am I telling you this? Because the difference here is what we communicate and what we explain to people is very important because that's what they actually use, right? Because when people are, and they come into your product or your service, what they need is they need to understand what they can actually do, right? We were talking about usability and utility, and this is a great part of it, because if they don't understand what they have to do, they can't advance. But before we continue into this path, I need to clarify something because I don't know. Yeah, let's do a raise of hands. Who here has ever heard about or worked with a content designer or UX writer? 3 out of like a whole bunch of people. So that's why I'm here. So let's get some basics down first then. I'm really wearing off like Harry Potter spells, folks. Help me out. So in a nutshell and like very simplified, we have like 3 types of writing, right? We have copywriting, content marketing, and content design. Basically what copywriting does is more of the persuasive side, is what we know of like ad folks. They're trying to like convince you to do something. And the type of language that they use is different because it has to be much more ornate, right? It has to be much more in a way that it'll persuade or convince you to use something. And it's mostly tied to branding or marketing or advertising. Then we have what we call content marketing, which is mostly based on long form, an SEO content. That's to like go in a little bit deeper, right? It's still another way to attract folks and convince them to use your product and service. But it's also tied to branding, right? And then we have content design or UX writing, depending on where you work with, it'll be a different name. Basically here, the language is much more plain, it's much more useful, it's much more centered on what the person needs, what the user needs, rather than what the brand or what the product needs. And it's used to guide people. Now, the top part. There we go. Thank you. Okay, so there's several ways that as content designers we provide value to the team. We help with content strategy. We help with UX writing, which is basically the writing on the interfaces. We also help, we work together with product designers. We work really close together with what Hector was saying. We work together with UX researchers to understand what is the language that folks are using, right? Because it's very interesting to speak the same language. We'll get into that in a bit, and not trying to like teach people how to name things that are within your product and your service. So the closer you are to the actual users, the better, because they'll understand, right? You'll see me repeating this about understanding, and you'll see why in a bit. Nope. Can I just do this? There we go. Cool. Thank you. And the ways that we provide value, right? There's a whole bunch of stuff that we do, like writing is the last bit of it. Because as designers, we have to do our research, we have to do our benchmark, we have to understand our users. And obviously, we need to understand how the interaction works and how the design for that product or service works. And then that's how we translate that, the last 20%, to, and these are some examples, right? Titles, CTAs, 404s, loading screens, whatever you can think about. Anything that has content, and by content, I not only mean the words, because sometimes you can use a GIF, sometimes you can use an image. All of that is part of how we're designing the experience together. So it's not about like, do we write it first or do we design it first, like the visual side? No, it's like, let's work together to understand how both things work together. Because this is true, right? Anybody can write. Like, who here has a keyboard? I want to see everybody's hands up because like everybody has a keyboard, come on. But that doesn't mean you can write for interaction, because you need a very particular set of skills, and no, I'm not doing Liam Neeson, Chris, to get it right. Because you need to understand how to guide folks, and you need to understand how to take them to the next steps. So what is it that we actually do? Well, we're kind of like Gandalf. Not in a way that we do magic, because there's nothing worse that you can tell a product designer or a UX researcher or a content designer is like, just sprinkle some UX magic on it. That's horrible. Don't do it, please, ever. We're like Gandalf because we're like guides, right? We're here to guide users to come in to your product and your service, get the information that they need, be able to perform that action, and continue on with their lives as fast as possible. It's working smoother. There we go. Because in a way, digital systems are like a conversation. Erica Hall, who is one of like my favorite authors out there for UX, actually, like Hector just showed you the Just Enough research. She has another book that's called Conversational Design, right? And she tells us that the way for systems, being an app, being a product, whatever it is, interact better with human beings, is that the way that they communicate should be much more human and less robotic, right? But in order to actually do that, we need to think about how does a conversation work? And I'm taking you back right now to like primary school. What do you need for a conversation to work? You need two people, you need a message, and you need a language, right? So how do we translate this into product design? Well, you have your human or your user, you have the system, right? And then you have that same language that both of you have to be able to speak. But the reality is, we don't speak the same language. When you start working at a company, you'll figure out that there's people that are very good at like programming languages. There's people that are amazing at legal language or even marketing language. But what happens to like the good old language, the one that folks actually interact with, right? The ones that people read on the screen. Well, it kind of becomes an afterthought. And then you have something like this. Task failed successfully. I didn't know you could successfully fail at a task. Or then you have something like that. Tests cannot be started because it already does not exist. Don't you just love it when shit gets metaphysical? Or this one. This one's my favorite one. Can you read it for me?
The action cannot be completed because unknown is busy.
Who is unknown? So this thing here is supposed to guide me. This thing here is supposed to give me answers. And the only thing it's doing is it's, it's making me ask more questions. I don't have the time, the energy, or the will to ask more questions to a system that should be helping me out. So every single time these things pop up, no, kittens don't die, but this happens. Why? Because design depends on words. And I will fight you for it, but give me a sec. Hear me out. Because as much as usability, as much as research, as much as the graphic side, as much as the code, right? Design depends on words. Because trust me, no one, and I mean no one, except if someone's doing a benchmark, I've learned to do this disclaimer, never, ever, ever is someone gonna come and say like, oh my God, look at that branding. Ooh, that's beautiful. Nobody's gonna come and like, hey, let's check Inspector. Oh, did you see that code, dude? Oh my God, the cleanest code I've seen in my whole life. Nobody's gonna say that, ever. Try that again. Because people come in to understand what they need to do. They need to interact with your system. But if they don't understand your message, here we go. Houston, we have a problem. So this is where I need you to keep me honest. Who gets this reference? Because I'm not about to like retire it. This is like 30 years old. Raise your hands if you've seen this movie. Okay, so I'm still safe. I have another season for it. Thank you. Okay, another question. This one's a little bit harder. Who knows this girl? Raise your hand. Has anybody seen this girl? Does anybody know who this girl is? Any ideas? No? Seriously? Nobody knows who this girl is? Well, the thing is, I don't know either. This is the first hit I got on Google when I searched for 7th grader English learner. This is someone in middle school in the US, I guess, and like from the 80s or something. So why am I showing you a photo of a 7th grader on a Saturday morning? Because studies tell us that the vast majority of people that consume content in English on the internet have the reading level of a 7th grader. What does that mean? That means, nope, not enough flick. There we go. That means we have to apply this design principle. KISS. And no, not this KISS. This one. Thank you. Who said that? Can you repeat that?
Keep it simple, stupid.
Thank you. I'm not calling anybody stupid. This is an actual design principle, right? So what does this mean? This means ditch Shakespeare. Go for Hemingway. Use language that people actually understand quickly, that they can take in the information, use it, and move along with their lives. Keep it simple, stupid. This also means that if you have several words that you could use, always go for the easier one. Ha. Now, you're gonna get this one a lot. It's my favorite one. It's like, yes, Mario, but people don't read. Yeah, no, they do read. Not as much as you would like to, but they do read, right? So let's start with that. So according to, and we've already spoken about NNG, so I won't get into that. There's this study that's called How Little Do Users Read? And we've realized, or they've realized, sorry, that people only read 20 to 28% of what's on their screen. So that's a little bit. They do read, but it's a little bit. And above all, they read in an F-shaped pattern, right? So what does this tell us for design? This tells us that the way that we lay out, right, our pages should follow this. It's an F because the titles, the subtitles, and the call to actions are the information that's closer to the titles. It's the most relevant, the most important for them. That's where you should put the emphasis, right? And this is always the example I give. Like when you go into something and you just see like this huge wall of text, you just run. You don't. It's like I can't do this. I can't do this. Why? Because the cognitive load increases 11% every 100 words. So as designers, what we want to do is we want to reduce the cognitive load, not increase the cognitive load. So when you're writing for interaction or when you're designing your content, think about these things. It's like, keep it simple, stupid. Because if you read that, and then you read that, the message is the exact same, but it's way easier to understand, and it's way faster to understand. You're getting the same idea right there. Because, and it seems very basic, right? Familiar words are easier to understand, right? When you're growing up and you're learning that, like, especially in Spanish, for example, that there's a whole bunch of synonyms that you can use, and like you try to sound smart, you use like big words. No, not here. When you're designing for interaction, try to use the simplest word. Try to use whatever is most familiar to the people that you're writing for. You got to know your audience. You got to know your users. Because, and this is one of my favorite quotes, Sarah Winters, she kind of like founded content design. It's just, people want to understand. They want to act upon what you're telling them. They're not here to marvel at your writing skills. As I told you, they're not here to marvel at your designs. This is, for me, a very humbling moment. I have to realize, like, I'm not here to write my next big novel. I'm here to write something that's actually going to help someone do something. Because words are design. Scott Cuby, who wrote an amazing book that it's very, very small, and you should give it a go. It's called Writing for Designers, aptly. He tells us that that words are like the most powerful design element out there. Why? Because they load really fast. Nothing on the internet loads faster than words. And they are capable of taking very complex meanings and putting them in teeny tiny spaces, right? Because with a few words, you can explain, right? And then when you put that together with images, boom, you've got something. And this is also true. If you think about it, when you're growing up, the way that you understand the world, is through the words that you use. Because we have a word for everything, and that's how we describe it. Because you can go, and I can go like, I could go like chair. Which one was faster, right? Because that is how we navigate the world around us. We use words every single day. Even the day that you don't want to speak to anybody, you'll end up using words by reading them or by hearing them or something, because that's how we navigate the world. So, enough theory, let me give you some quick tidbits that you can take home. There's a concept that's called voice plus tone. It's not voice and tone. There's a difference, right? Why? Because the voice is your personality, right? I always have the same voice as Mario, but my tone might change depending on who I speak to, right? So if I speak to my parents, or if I speak to my kids, or if I speak to my friends, there's a different tone. Same thing with your product and service. If I'm waiting in like this virtual queue to get my tickets for, I don't know, Red Hot Chili Peppers or whoever I really like, and I've been waiting there for like an hour, do my payment, it fails, and then the payment thing tells me like, hooray, your card didn't pass, and you have to start all over the queue. Exactly. So the tone has to match, right? The voice is always the same, but the tone has to match whatever the situation is. Clear, concise, and useful. Folks, if you only keep one thing out of today from content design, this is that. These are like our basic design principles when it comes to content design. Let me show you why. Because this is an original, like this would be the original message. Can you read it over there at the back? Is it okay? If not, I'll read it. Cool. Okay. Now let's make it clear. Yeah, it's not working. Okay, so let's make it clear and concise. Not working either, right? Because like nobody likes when people answer yes and no to like everything. But if we make it clear, concise, and useful, now we can understand it. It's quick enough to understand, but we can actually do something with it. So the same problem, just through different lenses or through different filters, makes a huge difference. And you can apply this to every single thing that you design out there. More photos? No? Let's go. Please, 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 please stop using lorem ipsum. Because I'll tell you why. Who here speaks Latin? Raise your hand. Exactly, case in point. You shouldn't be using Learn because you don't know what you're telling your users. You'll be designing something that makes no sense. It's gibberish. So you need to accompany that with the actual words. It doesn't matter if it's the final copy. Just use whatever you think should say there. Like, what does this title is going to tell you? Just do it. It's fine. Because then these beauties happen, right? Oh, look at that, my wireframe. I'm so happy because everything's fine. And then I come in. No, too far away. Nope, there we go. And I break your wireframe. Another example. Because you're like, ha, he likes to write. Actually, I don't need to tell you that much, so. Nobody understands Lorem Ipsum, nobody speaks Latin, and I'm sure you won't design anything in Latin. If you design something in Latin, that's fine. Then we'll take that conversation offline. So, write in your mocks, not in docs, because when you have your written part somewhere else different than your designs, and come on, people, it's 2024, we have Figma. Give your content designers access to Figma. They should be able to write with you. And if you don't have a content designer or UX writer, do the writing. It's fine. It's fine. At least get it to a place where it makes sense that you're not reading gibberish in Latin. So, are we on time? Cool. We can go on time. Here's a quick tips of how to actually do the writing for some bits of interaction. So, descriptions, right? These are the bits of information that are normally not interactive. And they'll explain a little bit more of the information, right? These are great places to tell folks what to expect from this part of the journey. And they're a great place to establish both the voice and the tone. Thank you, Lara. Keep me honest. Empty states. These normally tend to be part of onboarding. These are a great chance for you to tell users what action they need to perform to fill this up and what they'll eventually find here. Labels. Again, complex meanings, teeny tiny spaces. With one word, I can give you the context of what the hell is going to be here or what this is information about. Same thing with titles. Titles can provide context as to where you are within the situation. If it's payments, then just call it payments. There's no need to do anything else. And these ones are my favorite ones. Call out the info that you need to include. Tell them if there's something that they need to know to avoid frustration, because like nobody likes it when do a password and they tell you, yeah, but you did a 3-letter password and you need a 16-letter password with I don't know, special characters and stuff. And controls, right? This is where you give folks the illusion of control by telling them what they can do on and off within your product or your service. They should always, and I mean always, and this is information architecture, folks, bring them together by subject. Make it easier to read, make it easier to scan. Because we read in, and you can see it here. What is this? An F. Confirmation messages. If something is taking a little bit longer than it should, and even if not, just tell people that something's happening, right? Because like nobody likes it when you say hi, and then the other one just looks at you like that. You're expecting a hi back. Same thing here. And these are pretty tough because we are the designers. The error is never going to be on the user. It's always our fault. It's not that they don't understand. It's like we're not being clear enough. So treat them kindly, help them get back from their error, and above all, make it contextual. Because if the error is here, point me where the error is and tell me why this is an error and how I can get back from that. And the other one that's tough and one that's also important because we were discussing about the FJ patterns are call to actions, right? These should be very, very basic, very clear, and very action-oriented. Try to use strong words like verbs. So, before I go, I'm going to leave you with 4 key takeaways. We're here to guide users as much as you, so let's work together on that. Conversation is the new UI. And if you think about it, that's something that you know how to do. So apply that to your designs. Keep it simple, stupid. Nobody's stupid here. That's just the name of the design principle. And words are design. Now, get your phone out. Everybody, phone out. Phone out, phone out. This right there is the UX writing library. So it's full of resources. I normally curate the Spanish version of this. It has podcasts, it has blog posts, it has books, it has everything that you need to go to get started. And then if you have or want more information, it's all right there. And yeah, that's me on the interwebs. Oh, one last thing. Can you read that for me?
Content precedes design. Design in the absence of content is not design. It's the creation.
What year is that from?
Jeffrey Zelman,
What year?
2080, yeah.
Bye, people.